Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat, episode 391, featuring the first in a brand new series of interviews with the great Chuck Sommerville, one of the great Apple II programmers. He's probably best known though for his game Chip's Challenge, and also the later game Chuck's Challenge. But he's done lots of other stuff, really from the very early days all the way up to modern times. He's also done a lot of work with LEDs. He's even worked on the Times Square ball. Sure, you've seen some of his work if you watch the New Year's Eve celebrations on TV. Anyway, he's a really great guest. He's got lots of great stories to tell, and I think you're really going to love it. So, without further ado, here is Mr. Chuck Sommerville. All right, folks, I am here with the great Chuck Sommerville. The original Bitbuster, creator of Chip's Challenge, Chuck's Challenge 3, and Greds in Space. He's worked on some Epix classics as well, including Summer Games 2 and California Games. He's also done work for Electronic Arts and 3DO. On top of all that, he's done some really amazing stuff with card and dice games, LEDs. He puts on some fantastic Halloween shows. Hope we can get into that a little later on. Also does a lot of art projects and Burning Man related stuff. Really cool. He's literally built the Times Square ball twice. And,
yep.
I was trying to think of a word that might sum all this up. About the closest I could come up with would be something like Imagineer to describe you, because it seems like you're like on a level of technology and technological projects that sort of paraphrase or maybe just quote Arthur C. Clarke on this. This is a quotation I was thinking about how any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Looking at your Halloween videos and your wizard, persona, you seem to be the kind of embodiment of that idea.
Well, I'm glad you took the time out to look at some of those Halloween videos. I'm really proud of them. So, I seem to have had two major careers in the gaming career and the LED career, and the gaming career never quite died. So that's why Chip's Challenge 2 finally surfaced after like a 20 years in the vault. I don't know if you know the story, but we'll talk about it. It seems to be that the longest any game has been from the time it was finished till the time it was released. So we can talk about that later if you want.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that. So why don't we just start at the beginning, though? You'd mentioned something about how you learned to program, and I guess this is TAG, T-A-G program. Not sure what is that the name of a program?
Yeah.
Or the name of a language? Or what is that?
It was a government experiment. So
a government experiment. This sounds promising.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I'm going to just kind of walk around here. So. When I was in 6th grade, way back, this was kind of before you could get a computer. I don't even know what the year was. Anyway, there was a professor in my hometown, teaching college, that wanted to do a study to see whether or not it helped to give special resources to kids who are determined to be talented and gifted. And I was selected to be evaluated for the program, and I was selected to be in the program, and I was put in the experimental group. Luckily, many of my friends were also in the program, and some of them were put into the control group. But they had a separate school that we went to once a week, and they offered courses in pretty much anything that you could imagine. And if we could think up something that we wanted to learn that wasn't in their course, they would come up with a way to try to teach us that too. It was called the PACE Center. It's in Huntington, West Virginia. And one of the courses they had was in computer programming. Now, the way they did this was they had a teletype terminal that was hooked up to the mainframe computer of the local campus, and we learned how to program on that. I was really fascinated by it, because I realized here's a machine that can do anything that I want it to do, and will do anything I want it to, as long as I can explain to it carefully enough what it is I want it to do. And when the program ended 3 years later, I got permission to stay, to continue to have access to that computer. And my dad was a serviceman for IBM. He repaired typewriters and things. So
really?
he helped us build a terminal, a video terminal, and we connected with a modem to that computer. And eventually, the college got tired of me being on the computer in the science building, and they moved me over to the computer in the math department. And that's when I moved from I was on a programming language called Focal, so I moved from Focal to Basic. And then I started. He would take me over to the college once a week and to work in their computer lab, and I could work on the terminals there. But that was my first experience with computers. And I used to have paper tape that I collected with my programs on it and things like that. But when the first ad for the Apple II hit the first Byte magazine for the first time, I was already a subscriber to Byte magazine. We ordered it, and I think I had serial number 354. And for 1 month, Apple offered a board-only option, only for 1 month. And that was when they initially started selling them. So we bought the board-only, and we were able to hook the typewriter from our terminal up to it and get a power supply and a case that was an old IBM memory typewriter case. And that was the computer that I took to college, actually.
Wow. That's really cool. I guess it was serendipitous that your dad had, all this knowledge of
Well, he certainly knew how to repair a typewriter.
Well, it came in handy, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. So how'd you end up over at Sirius Software? Is that where you published your first game, first commercial?
Well, that's the first one that mattered. I had actually...
You'd done many games before this.
No, I hadn't, actually. I'd done a little bit of stuff that nobody's ever seen that was released on tape. There was a guy that was trying to start a software company out of my hometown, and he found me, and I wrote a couple of dumb programs in BASIC, and they were released on tape, but it didn't turn into anything. It was when I started going to school at Georgia Tech that I met a guy, another freshman. I think his name was Mark Goodman, and he wrote Appleoids, and which was hosted by Venture International. And he was making pretty good money off of it, and I figured I could do something at least as good as that. So that was in the back of my mind, and my friends said, we're joking about making games, and I said, I bet I could write a game in a half hour. So I wrote Snakebite in BASIC in about a half hour.
No way.
And but I mean, you can't publish a game written in BASIC, so it had to be rewritten in assembly before I published it to Sirius. And they liked it. Actually, I submitted it to Online first, Ken Williams' company, and they said, well, it looks pretty good, but it needs something more. So that's when I added the Perilous Purple Plums, which actually nobody likes nobody actually plays with them, but I added them anyway. And then I sent it to Sirius, and Sirius took it. And then when I talked to Ken Williams about it later, he said, no, you were supposed to add the stuff and then send it back to me, not add the stuff and send it to another publisher. So
well, did it turn out to be a good decision?
It did. I really liked. I got to meet Jerry Jewell, and because he was the founder of Sirius, and actually, here's my Snakebite poster. Let's throw that in as a cameo. So anyway, Jerry and I, Sirius imploded eventually, although I did get a chance to get Dreads in Space in before they imploded. And Jerry took a position as a project manager at Epix, and he invited me to go with him. So I did. I was trying to start a new career at a company making newspaper rendering software at the time, but I really didn't like it. So anyway, that's how I ended up at Epix.
Yeah, Snakebite. I'm pretty sure I played that. I noticed it's out for, I guess you released it for about 5 different systems, or at least 4 here. I'm pretty sure I played the Apple II version.
That's the one that I wrote. All the rest of them were ports by other people.
Yeah, I seem to remember it was on, I think that my school had this Franklin computer. If I'm remembering that right, and that was one of the games on there. That's
so
awesome.
very few people. So very few people have actually finished all the levels in that.
How many levels are there?
There are 29 levels. And I'd like to say here that I was totally blown away by one of the few people who finished it. Was John Romero.
Wow, yeah.
And he actually, he said that I guess he did it as a bet. But he's one of the few people I know that finished it. And John and I later became fans because he wanted to make get together all his Apple II heroes to have a big party, and that's when I got to meet him in person.
Yeah, notice he contributed all of the Moby Games entries about your games.
Oh, did he do
down
that?
There, like the Snakebite, I was like, listed who wrote the article about this? I'm like, John Romero. I was like, is it that John Romero? Yes, of course.
It's that John Romero. Yes.
That's great. He's really done a lot to help preserve the Apple II community.
Yes.
Well, let's get a little bit into Grudge in Space. This is 1983, according to Moby Games, which I guess that would be Romero.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay, so what happens with Grudge in Space was by the time, so I was going to school at Georgia Tech when I wrote Snakebite, and I was on a kind of an intern program at IBM in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was also receiving free copies of the Epix catalog because I was one of their published authors, and they sent me Blade of Blackpool by Chris Wilson, and I played Blade of Blackpool. And I thought, I could, if they're willing to publish this game, I think I can do at least as well. So I knew I needed help because I wasn't going to be able to do the artwork. And another student that was a good friend of mine, Joe Dudar, he had basically dropped out, and he didn't have anything to do, and his life was going nowhere. So I said, hey, why don't you come join me? We'll go back to my hometown in West Virginia, and we'll rent an apartment, and I'll write this game, and you do the artwork, and we'll publish it through Sirius. And I'll get Sirius to sign all my papers saying that I'm an intern there for the summer. And he said, oh, okay. So he borrowed $500 from an uncle, and he came, and we spent the winter writing the game. And then the following spring, it was published, and then during the following summer, Sirius had contacted me. They wanted it ported to the Commodore 64 and to the Atari 800. So my summer internship was actually at Sirius, porting to those two platforms. At the end of the summer, they liked my work so much that they offered me a full-time position. So I thought, okay, so I can either stay in California making video games, or I can go back to school and spend money on school. So I decided to drop out of school. So I never went back. Yeah. I went for a summer internship, and I just never re-enrolled. So it's funny.
Yeah, I wonder if your school sent any more interns out there, huh? That's awesome. I mean, how did you learn how to program? Was it pretty much the same thing on all these different platforms, or was it a big learning curve, or you're just such a genius you just sort of instantly grokked it?
Well, I was really lucky in the case with the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800 that I was there in the offices at Sirius, and there were other programmers there that had worked on those machines. So they had the development systems already available, and I was able to learn some of the ins and outs of the hardware registers and the different specifics of the machines through those. Probably the most challenging part on the Commodore 64 version was actually also on the Atari version, was the dithering of the lines of colors to try to get a wider color palette that the Apple had. So it turned out that Tim Wilson had written that interleave color program on the Commodore 64 already, and so I was able to borrow his code for that.
Oh, nice. So you didn't tell him you were trying to do. You could do much better than Blade of Blackpool.
Oh no, I didn't tell him. I didn't say that to him.
That's great.
Tim's a great guy. Tim's a great guy. You know, he ended up being the CTO at EA.
Oh, wow.
So, or as he puts it, one of the CTOs. So anyway, yeah, I worked with him, you know, when he was there at EA as well. So.
Where did you get some of the inspirations for Dreads in Space? I was reading some of the copy from the manual and the box, and you know, I sort of picked up on a sort of a Douglas Adams vibe. I mean, were you reading any hikers?
That was all Joe Dudar. All I did was write the code. Joe Dudar wrote the story and did the art. So I was just the code monkey. But I did write a compiler that used the AppleSoft source files because AppleSoft would tokenize its language. So when you looked at the binary of an AppleSoft file, it would have, you know, a single number for the word print, you know, as a token. So I wrote a parser that would read an AppleSoft file and then turn it into my own interpretive language for the game. So I actually used the AppleSoft text editor to write the files, then ran them through an interpreter or ran through the compiler to turn it into the bytecode. So it was kind of a cool technical achievement, but you know, as far as the story and the art, it wasn't me.
Well, it turned out really well, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. I got my first sense that I actually had a fan with that one because I got a letter from somebody who, well, there was an article in Heavy Metal Magazine about it, which was, I thought, wow, I'm Heavy Metal Magazine. And then I got a letter from somebody in prison saying that he wanted to learn more about making adventure games, and he had access to a TRS-80.
Did he turn out to do any games, or is that?
I never responded to his email. It just made me a little bit nervous.
Oh, sure. You were telling me earlier that the Gruds was the logo for the company, right?
It is. Here, let me.
It's on
is that view there? So that's the Grud.
Wow. So now you
yes, we thought it would be a better sell job. Joe and I talked about this. If we could, say to them, hey, we'll do a game based on your company logo.
So you'd already mentioned that you got to Apex via your connection there at Sirius. How would you compare those studios?
Oh, Epic's, well, in the early days, everything felt kind of garage-like. But Epic's was there was much more camaraderie. I think the thing at Sirius, I was never really accepted as like one of the guys. I was just this person on the side that nobody really paid much attention to. At Epic's, I came in I was an employee, but I was really working on a specific project when I came in. Jerry brought me in to do summer games on the Apple II because I'm an Apple II expert. And it turned out that most of the guys at Epic's weren't Apple II guys. They were graduating to the Commodore 64, but they were really from the Atari VCS stuff. So when I made summer games on the Apple and actually wrote a sprite engine for it, they were really impressed. And so when I went in to work in their offices full time, I already had street cred there. So, they gave me a lot more respect than I got at Sirius.
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry it's been a while since I did an episode. It's a little hectic here at the university with all the final exams and everything coming up. So, I do Matt Chat kind of as a sideline. It's a moonlighting, if you will. So if from time to time, you don't see a couple episodes, you know what's going on. I will say, though, I really need your help to keep this show going. For whatever reason, my Patreon support has started to go down. I wanted to get it up to 500 so I could offer transcripts. I get this all the time, not just from Matt Chat viewers, but a lot of people are interested in the interviews. They just don't want to watch a video. They'd rather just read the transcripts. I fully, I support that. I think that'd be great, but I have to pay people to transcribe these things. It's actually a lot of work to do that. But anyway, I need to get to at least the 500 mark to offer that service. And I used to offer it, and then the support went down again. So it's kind of up and down again with this Patreon. I don't get complaints about the show, so I'm guessing it's just guys that run into some financial troubles or whatever. So I don't want anybody to go broke supporting Matt Chat, nothing like that. But, guys, if you are supporting the show, I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It really makes a huge difference. If you want to go up to from $1 to $2, that would be really great. Or if you, if you haven't supported the show but you like the episodes, please step up to the plate there. I love doing these interviews with people like Chuck. Got a lot of great stuff in the pipelines. Even got Leonard from Troika coming on here in a few weeks. So lots of great stuff. I just need you guys, your help to keep these episodes coming. So please go to that Patreon site. You can go to mattchat.us. Lots of ways to support the show, including, and I haven't mentioned these in a while, but since it's getting near Christmas time, I am an author. I should probably plug these books a lot more. I just don't like the plugs and the ads. But if you are looking for gifts for yourself or for somebody that likes games, we've got a bunch of books here: Vintage Game Consoles, Vintage Games 2.0. This is a really good book. Really proud of that one. Of course, the old classic, Dungeons and Desktops. Shane Stacks and I are actually redoing this one, so it'll be updated soon. And then, let's see, also Honoring the Code. This is, if you like Matt Chat, this is actually some of the transcripts ended up in this book before I just started offering those for free. But there's some nice introductions in there. And anyway, I think you'd really like these books. I get a lot of requests for people to sign these. That's fine. Probably the best way to do that, just let me know you want a signed copy, and then I can save you a little bit of money by ordering it from Amazon myself. Get it sent here. I get the free shipping, and I'll sign it, and then just send it to you, and you can reimburse me for the book and the shipping. So it'll probably save a couple of bucks at least that way. And if you live overseas, it'll be more for the shipping, but I'm sure you know that. But anyway, I'm happy to do it. I just really want people to read these. Put a lot of love and energy into these books. So it's I hate the thought of just nobody being able to get these. So if you want it, just let me know. We can make it happen. Or of course you can just go to Amazon and buy it yourself. So whatever you like and however you support the show, just know that I really appreciate it, and it's really grateful to you. Maybe that's somebody that wants a signed copy, just the wife. Okay, let's see. What about that news for the Matt Cave? All right, let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is, I thought this was really cool. So I know a lot of you guys love Wolfenstein 3D. Well, here is a version of it for the Commodore 64. It's a Super CPU release. Let's see. The sources have been modified to allow building for 32-bit targets like the MIPS CPU recompiled to 65.816 code. Let's see. It's recommended for real hardware. And some parts have been rewritten for this similar 65.816 for better performance, and so on and so forth. I don't pretend to understand all the details here, but I thought some of you guys might be fascinated by this. Wolfenstein 3D, I'll post a link to that. This is a Wolf 3D version 1.1, and I got that from Indie Retro News blog. All right, next up, I remember my interview with Don Wilkins. That was back in episode 356. He's out with an update about the game Stellar Tactics, and it's a pretty big update. He's released a combat patch for it that now allows a full 3D flight for space exploration and combat. So apparently Don was sitting around playing. I guess he thought this would be a huge thing to move it from 2D to 3D, but he was tinkering around with, I guess, Unity, and discovered it really wouldn't be that hard to do. So it's going to be 3D combat now for space exploration. So it sounds really good. Definitely head over there if you're interested in Stellar Tactics. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back and watch episode 356. And then finally, our friends over at Game Banshee, they've posted this about Beamdog and their latest Twitch stream. This is Trent Oster and Phil Daigle talking about Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition. They got a lot of information there, updates about it. I'm pointing at the Game Banshee site because there's a nice little summary of all the highlights from the video in case you don't want to watch the whole thing. A lot of interesting tidbits there. One that I'm kind of interested in is what they say they're planning on down the road. They're going to be making some new resources and content, quote unquote. Apparently that will cover some new modules, but there's lots of other possibilities. I was kind of playing with, what would I like to see in a Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition. Sure, you could think of a few things, but it might be a good time to make some suggestions to them. But anyway, definitely head over there to Game Banshee and check that out. All right, I think we should wrap it up with a quotation. And I found this one I liked. This is from Abraham Lincoln. Goes something like this. I think you'll enjoy it. If I were two-faced, would I be wearing this one? See you guys next week.
Wait, what do you do if every time you see this one incredible woman, you think you're gonna hurl?
I say hurl. If you blow chunks and she comes back, she's yours. If you spew and she bolts, it was never meant to be.